Welcome back, true crime listeners. Today's case involves very young minors, which can be a very sensitive topic to cover. I will actually cover two separate cases that involve three Native children who lived in Lawton, Oklahoma, but only one case would be classified as solved, while the second case is currently classified as unsolved. On April 8, 1976, 3-year-old Mary Elizabeth Carpitcher and Augustine Tina Carpitcher, commonly referred as Tina, were twin girls who lived with their grandmother, Augustine Williams, in Lawton, Oklahoma. They spent the morning running errands with their grandmother, Augustine, before returning home at approximately 1 p.m. When they returned, Mary and Tina spent some time outside in front of their house. But then Grandma Augustine noticed they started to ride their tricycles in the street, which was unsafe and brought them back inside. At the time, Grandma Augustine was very busy and was doing housework, so it was much easier and safer to keep an eye on them when the girls were inside. The twin girls continued to play in their living room, while Grandma Augustine did continuous checks on the girls in the living room. During the last check, she was startled when she didn't find the girls in the living room. Upon this discovery, Grandma Augustine began searching for the twin girls, Mary and Tina, around the house, and then checked in with neighbors to see if anybody saw the girls. She continued to drive around the area checking, but the twin girls were nowhere in sight, and nobody has seen them. Grandma Augustine did have a well-known babysitter named Jackie Ruby-Doo, so she made a stop there to see if the girls were there, but she was unable to locate the girls or Jackie. The twin girls were considered abducted from inside their grandma's home. The twin girls would not be found until 2 days later, on April 10th, 1976. A young girl named Kathy Jones, who was approximately 10 years old, and her cousin were playing outside near the abandoned house when they heard the cries of a young child. The children decided to enter the abandoned house and continued to hear the cries and screams of a young child. They entered the kitchen and decided to open the refrigerator. Once opening the refrigerator, a very young child stumbled out, while a second child's partially decomposed body was found beside her. Kathy and her cousin got scared and ran out, but quickly returned to help the little girl. 3-year-old Tina was the surviving child, but her twin sister, Mary Carpitcher, passed away. An autopsy was conducted and concluded that 3-year-old Mary suffocated in the locked fridge. Twin sister Tina survived by breathing through a cracked hole that was located at the refrigerator's door. The search for the abductor and murderer began. At the time of the discovery, Kathy asked Tina who placed her in the refrigerator, to which Tina apparently said Jackie did it. Jackie. It's also shared in another article that Tina said at the time of being found that Jackie Boo or Jackie Bird did it. The only Jackie that the twins knew was 16-year-old Jackie Ruby-Doo, who was a common babysitter for the twins. Not only was Jackie a babysitter for the twin girls, but on multiple occasions, Jackie and the twins' aunt, Thomasina Williams, would travel together to school by car as they attended the same high school, Lawton High School, and often socialized at school. The twins' aunt said the twin girls would call Jackie Jackaroo, which sounds pretty close to Jackie Boo or Jackie Burr. Now, I'm pretty sure if the house was abandoned, then the refrigerator was not working. But considering that the twins spent time overnight, I wonder if the weather was chilly, especially for a 3-year-old. She must have been in shock, so sometimes when our bodies are cold or in shock, we tend to mispronounce words. But Jackie Boo or Jackie Burr does sound pretty close to Jackaroo. And again, the girls only knew one Jackie. There isn't a lot of information in regards to what happened during questioning. However, an arrest and charge in the abduction and murder case of 3-year-old Mary and Tina was not immediately done. Jackie was questioned, but denied any involvement, but was a prime suspect in the investigation. Based on the lack of information and the survivor being so young, investigators were desperate for a confession, but Jackie never confessed. The twins' grandmother, Augustine, did remember that there was also a van that made a U-turn in front of the house the day the children disappeared, but I believe nothing grew from that lead. As I was researching, I noticed a lot more information as to why Jackie was the prime suspect was presented during trial and publicly made as the trial began. But before we talk about the trial, let's talk about the next tragedy. The next tragedy that Lawton, Oklahoma would be faced with took place on Halloween night, October 31st, 1977. It was late and it was time for bed. Rose and George Carter were home with their 19-month-old Nima that evening. They placed Nima to bed and she was not happy about going to bed. However, George and Rose decided to do the method of cry it out when Nima didn't go to sleep easily. So when Nima continued to cry for a while, they didn't check on her as they weren't too concerned. They allowed Nima to cry throughout the night, but this decision would become a decision they would, for the rest of their lives, always think about. The next morning arrived. Rose went to Nima's bedroom and found the crib empty, with Nima nowhere in sight. She asked George if he had seen Nima, but Nima was not with George and he hadn't seen her either. Together they started searching around the house. Nima loved to hide, so they made sure to check every spot that Nima loved to hide in. They checked kitchen cabinets, the closets, outside around the house, underneath the house, but Nima was nowhere to be found. They noticed the nursery window locked and the front door to the house locked too. George and Rose alerted authorities of Nima's disappearance. Authorities immediately suspected George and Rose. They were questioned and were asked to take a lie detector test, which they did. Rose and George passed the lie detector test and were ruled out as suspects. Investigators were back to square one at considering anyone in the neighborhood as suspects. Who could possibly enter the home without breaking in, walk past the parents' room, and take 19-month-old Nima from her crib and then walk out with her? It wouldn't be until a month later when Nima's remains would be found. A group of children were playing in an abandoned house when they opened an old refrigerator and Nima's decomposed body fell out. The children left the scene and quickly notified an adult, who went back to the abandoned house to verify what the children saw and located Nima's body. Authorities were immediately notified. After a 23-day search for Nima was over, the search for a suspect continued. Upon further investigation, an autopsy concluded that Nima was placed alive in the refrigerator and suffocated. When authorities gathered information, it was revealed that George and Rose had two babysitters, Joy Smith and Jacqueline Rubidoux. That's when someone recalled that name, Jacqueline Rubidoux, Jackie. Jackie was already on authorities' radar from a previous Lawton abduction and murder case of 3-year-old twins Tina and Mary. Also note that Nima was found in an abandoned house about a mile away from where the missing twins were found. Authorities questioned Jackie again, but Jackie denied any involvement in the abduction and murder of Nima. Jackie said she was playing bingo on the night that Nima went missing. A now retired Lawton police detective, Cecile Davidson, did recount that when interviewing Jackie, he noticed that she was not able to maintain eye contact and always looked somewhere else or looking at the ground. Jackie was very quiet, but when she did have something to say, she would go right close to you, but then back off. This was very frustrating for detectives, as they were never able to get a confession out of her, and had no physical evidence like fingerprints, footprints, no hair, no blood, absolutely nothing that would physically place Jackie at any of these crime scenes. However, upon further investigation, on October 19, 1979, Jackie was charged with first-degree murder of twin Mary Carpitcher. Jackie had her bail set and then reduced on the eve of her 1982 murder trial from $50,000 to $5,000. During this time, it allowed prosecutors to build a stronger case against her. It's been reported that there were more than 75 witnesses that were called to testify. However, this trial was only focused on Mary Carpitcher and Tina, but the judge did allow Nima's murder case to become part of the trial, even though Jackie did not have any charges pending in regards to Nima. The trial began with Jackie pleading innocent. During the trial, Kathy Jones, one of the girls who found Tina, was one of the witnesses who testified. She testified that when finding Tina, that Tina said Jackie Boo or Jackie Burr, and that it was the name of a man. At another testification, Kathy claims that Tina said Jackie Burnett did it. Kathy was questioned in the changes of her testimony, and she said she was scared, nervous, and confused, which is understandable at such a young age, being brave enough to testify. During the hearing, it was publicly released that authorities did question a teenage boy that lived in the neighborhood and was named Jackie Burnett, but was ruled out and never charged. Kathy's mom was at the scene after being notified of the incident by Kathy. Kathy's mother testified that Tina even said Jackie Burnett and not Jackie Rubidoux. She said that Tina said it was Jackie Burnett who was the one who placed her in the refrigerator. But Kathy's mom does admit that she had a hearing problem which caused an echoing sound when there were screams or hollering. Jackie's grandmother, Winnie Hollow, was a defense witness and claims that Jackie normally returns home from Lawton High School at 1:30 p.m. or 1:35 p.m. to wake her up, as Winnie worked the night shift as a licensed practical nurse at the Lawton nursing home, and that Jackie was home at the time on the day the twins disappeared. Kathy's mom did have a twin sister too, Claudine, who lived really close to the 3-year-old twins. She testified and pointed out Jackie as the defendant she saw walking through the area on the day the twins disappeared. She said she saw a slender woman with black hair wearing blue jeans and a checked shirt. Another woman, Thelma McKeag, who also lived in the area, claimed she was outside putting up siding on their home when she saw Jackie pulling 2 young girls by their wrists towards the empty house on the day the abduction happened. She describes the girls as dark girls who looked about 2.5 years old. She also noticed that the 2 little girls were trying to pull loose. A short moment later, she saw Jackie walking alone. Thelma claims she did not feel comfortable coming forward earlier as she wanted no involvement. So it seems like they had several eyewitnesses that could place Jackie at the scene of the abduction. Jackie's mom and aunt made claims during testimony that on the day of the funeral for Mary, that Tina had approached Jackie and said her Aunt Thomasina wanted to talk with her and wanted to sit together. They claim they noticed Tina began screaming and crying when Tina's mom tried to get a man named Lou to sit with her family, but Tina's mom and Grandma Augustine both denied these claims and denied that Jackie was asked to sit with the family. There were 2 witnesses that came forward and claimed Jackie had bragged to them while being held in the Comanche County Jail in May 1981 that she was guilty of abducting 3-year-old Tina and Mary and locking them in the refrigerator. But Jackie denied these claims during her testimony. A man named Jimmy Rogers, who worked as a Comanche County jailer, claims that Jackie and the 2 other witnesses were held in different cells. Jackie was held in a larger cell, and the other inmates were only moved into the larger cells when they requested permission to watch TV. Jimmy says he does not recall ever giving permission for any of the inmates to watch news programs during the duration of Jackie being held there. Another witness was George Drever, who was a police officer that responded to the scene. He said when he arrived at the scene, he found Mary's decomposed body and secured the scene immediately. Then he found Tina wandering in an alleyway, looking very dazed. He noticed Tina was only wearing a t-shirt with what appeared to be bloodstains and old whip marks and burns on her back. The officer placed her in the car for Tina to be transported to a children's shelter. Then a former lieutenant from the Lawton Police Department was dispatched to collect evidence, to which he did. He took pictures, made sketches, but did not take any fingerprints from the refrigerator, kitchen counter, stove, shower stall, entranceways, or windows. Bite marks were found on Tina, but it was difficult to conclude who made those bite marks on her, if it was her sister Mary or Jackie. A stone model of Jackie's teeth was made and determined that the marks were consistent with characteristics of Jackie's upper and lower teeth, and that it was not consistent with Mary's teeth. But on Jackie's defense witness, they testified that the bite marks closely resembled a bite that Tina's twin Mary would have given her as opposed to Jackie. Tina was 10 years old when the 1983 trial began. In Tina's testimony on April 8, 1976, She claimed that she and her sister Mary were playing in their grandmom's living room when Jackie came to the door. Jackie told the twin girls to come with her and led them several blocks away from the house to the abandoned building. Tina describes the location as white and near railroad tracks. Once inside, Tina states she saw there were broken furniture. Jackie told the twins to get into the refrigerator and their aunt would come get them later to take them out for ice cream. Jackie then closed the door and left the twins inside. Jackie's attorney did try and argue that Tina's testimony was memorized and coerced, but Tina herself states that that's what she remembers happening. On May 1983, Jackie Rubidoux was found guilty of first-degree murder in the suffocation of 3-year-old Mary and was sentenced to life in prison. At the time of her sentencing, Ruby had a 3-year-old son, Sean, who was adopted to relatives of Jackie once the sentencing occurred. In Nima's case, not everyone involved was convinced that Jackie had involvement in the abduction and murder of Nima, including George Carter, Nima's dad. It appears that the Carter family had their dog poisoned 2 months prior to Nima's abduction. They also had their house vandalized when they returned home, and again this incident happened prior to Nima's disappearance. George always had a hard time believing that the Jackie he knew would cause any harm to Nima. He always witnessed Nima very comfortable and excited to see Jackie. George does believe it was someone who was familiar with their house, but he never fully felt convinced that the Jackie he knew could have done something like this to Nima. However, Nima's grandma, Audrey Carter, does not have great memories of Jackie and felt Jackie was actually capable of doing it and described Jackie as being very weird. So again, it seems like some people in the Carter family were convinced and some were not. George did say he did hear that Jackie was on drugs back when the cases took place, and he would have liked to have a chance to ask Jackie if she did have any involvement with Nima's murder. But unfortunately, George would not be able to get that chance. Jackie passed away on August 26, 2005 from liver cancer at the Mabel Bassett Correctional Center in McLeod at the age of 46. Unfortunately, it seems like in Nima's case, there is not much closure for George and Rose's family, as there are so many unanswered questions and doubts as to what may have happened to Nima. George and Rose did have another daughter, Erin, who was born 2 years after Nima's murder, and she even said that she felt pain and cried when she was told about having an older sister. She was happy but so sad that she had an older sister that she would never get to meet and build memories with. George did share that he found peace. Quote, "I don't need to know because the person who did this will have to ultimately answer to God. You know, I'll never forget the act, but I forgive the person. I really do. And that alone has set me free." Quote. I'd love to hear your feedback and questions that you still may have. Comment if there is any possible information that I may have missed, as I did my very best to conduct a deep research. A kind reminder to please be mindful of negative comments, as these are real people's lives. All I want to do is bring light to cases that are not always talked about and advocate for victims and their families. Until the next case, please stay safe and always spread kindness.